Good afternoon, Namibia and the world, and welcome to another session here at the Government Information Center. I am Desire Kahiha, and I'm your host for this afternoon. Well, Namibia will be joining the rest of the world in commemorating World Wetlands Day and World Water Day, hence our topic being commemoration of World Water and Wetlands Day for the year 2023. And to help us look into the activities of commemorations for these days, we do have Ms. Ndina Nashipili in the studio with us. She is the Deputy Director for Water Basin Management in the Directorate of Water Resources Management from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Desire.
We also have on the line with us, that is Ms. Lydia Amutenya. She's the Public Relations Officer from the city of Windhoek. That's the municipality here in the capital. Good afternoon, Ms. Amutenya.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Well, to kick off, we would just like to find out from Ms. Nashipili. Can you tell us more on what the 2 days are about and what the ministry and its organizing partners have planned for the commemoration?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. To break the ice, allow me to please just define some of the words that have been used, such as World Wetlands Day, just to put our listeners and viewers into perspective of what we are talking about. Wetlands is a word that is used to define areas that contain water, either temporary or permanent, and this includes our rivers, oceans, floodplain, as well as the shallow sea waters, such as our Office Bay Lagoon. World Wetlands Day globally is commemorated each year on the 2nd of February to coincide with the signing of the Ramsar Convention, which was signed in 1971 on the 2nd of February in the city in Iran, which is called Ramsar, and that's where the name of the convention adopted from. It is commemorated to highlight the importance of wetlands on our day-to-day lives, the goods and services that we obtain from wetlands, and also to create awareness on how we can utilize these valuable resources. On the other hand, World Water Day is commemorated each year on the 22nd of March, and is to highlight the pressures that are facing freshwater resources around the globe. And what we have planned for this year, we have a number of activities lined up. We are commemorating the 2 days on the 16th and 17th of this month, which is toward the end of this week. We are having school learners from the schools in Groothoop, our venue for this year's commemoration. We will take these learners to Avistem, one of the wetlands around Windhoek, just for them to have first-hand experience on what you are talking about when you are saying World Wetlands Day. Then on the 17th of March, which is Friday, we are going to have our formal event at Groothoop, one of the settlements within the Windhoek City Municipality. So it's a packed week, and we hope to create the much needed awareness on the 2 resources.
Thank you. It does definitely sound like a packed or eventful commemoration that you have lined up. Mrs. Amutenya, we would then like to find out from you, how is the celebration of World Water and Wetland Day relevant to the city of Windhoek?
Thank you very much. Water holds immense values to the community where they find themselves, and of course, Windhoek is no exception. So this day is critical in the writing of awareness creation, and of course, inspiring the action of the Windhoek residents in terms of action to take, in terms of them trying to tackle the water and sanitation challenges. Of course, as a local authority, accommodating close to 500,000 population, of which some are living in the areas where the water infrastructure still needs proper rehabilitation to care for the population. Of course, we continuously promote responsible and sustainable water usage in the city, and of course access to safe water as per the Sustainable Development Goal 6 to be specific. So this is a very good day in terms of our advocacy and awareness creation to the public and the residents of Windhoek. Of course, to everyone who finds themselves within the boundaries of Windhoek, to understand why water is important, why we should use water sparingly, why we should understand the impact of climate change and how does it affect our water availability of water in our cities, and then the weather conditions that affect the city, like the city of Windhoek. So these are all the things that the community need to understand for them to really appreciate that what we have, we need to use it sparingly, and of course we need to sustainably use this water because it is very scarce resource.
Okay. Well understood. Definitely makes sense. Ms. Nashipili, we would like to come back to you then with reason. You spoke about Groothoop being your host town for this year's commemorations. We would like to then find out from you, is there a specific reason why Groothoop was chosen?
Yes, we have very good reasons why we decided to host this year's World Wetlands Day and World Water Day commemoration in Groothoop, because over the past years we have heard or read in the media about the water issues that are experienced by the communities living in Groothoop. So the idea of us having this commemoration day is to highlight or to bring to the attention of the relevant stakeholders the challenges that are experienced by this community, with the aim for us to identify and find lasting solutions to ensure that our communities in Groothoop and also in the country have access to safe drinking water and improved sanitation. And yes, of course, we would expect or expected as coming from government entities to have solutions. But I would like to highlight that government alone or the city of Windhoek cannot do it alone to solve the problem of water and sanitation in the different communities, and in particular Groothoop. I will later on probably give information as to why the challenges are experienced by the community in Groothoop with related to water and sanitation services provisions later on in the program.
Okay. Mrs. Amutenya, I'm back with you, and Groothoop is where these celebrations or commemorations are taking place. Yet, as Ms. Nashipili alluded to, they're facing challenges with adequate water for the community. What is the city of Windhoek doing to ensure that the situation of Groothoop is improved for the long term?
Thank you very much. Just maybe a quick one on the background of how we find ourselves here in terms of the situation in Groothoop. The public will remember that the city of Windhoek took over Groothoop in September 2017, and during that time, Groothoop water supply scheme only produced about 10 to 15 cubic meters of water per hour for a population of close to 10,000 people. In other words, there was really no water for extended period. And then in 2020, the City of Windhoek Council resolved to address the water situation in Groothoop. And of course, this addressing of water situation in Groothoop is being done in phases, because it's it's a situation that has been coming for a long time. And of course, the solutions will also have to come in phases. The first action was to supply water between 50 to 55 cubic meters of water per hour from the initial 10 to 15 cubic meters in 2017. Then also the rehabilitation of 4 boreholes, construction of new pumps and electrifying them, filling of the reservoir, water treatment and disinfection. We also did the hydro census of all existing boreholes in Grootop. However, there could be that there are still some boreholes that we could not locate. And of course, more boreholes are planned to be drilled again. And a preliminary groundwater protection map also was drafted that is identifying and outlining the aquifer zones and possible land use within the different zones. We also had a moratorium that was placed on applications for drilling at Grootop at the time that the policy on drilling, until that the time that the policy on drilling, abstraction and water supply is passed, so that we can handle those applications for borehole drilling in Grootop in line with the said policy. So in the meantime, we have communicated to the Grootop community about this moratorium, and also explaining to them about the public notice that we issued, explaining the procedures and the related to drilling of boreholes on how to go about that, because the situation was that the people were just drilling left, right, and center, and of course we have groundwater resources that we need to protect in the area as well. So the challenges, water challenges in Grootop are actually many, and they've been coming, as I mentioned, they've been coming a long way. So there are other issues like the growth in population in Grootop that is also then have an impact on the sustainable water supply in Grootop. Especially one example where we have a lot of population growth surrounding the area of Grootop proper, which is presenting an additional challenge in planning of a sustainable water supply solution. So in terms of the action that we set for ourselves is that council resolution, the target of 50 cubic meter per hour was reached in July 2020. And of course, now we are pumping almost double that rate. We are pumping at 90 cubic meter per hour, and that is not sustainable. So we are challenged in many instances in the situation of Grootop, but council has put in an action plan that we are working towards to see how we can improve the situation of Grootop, and the continuous engagement with the community for them also to understand that there are certain things that they are also doing from their side that will affect the issue of proper water supply in Grootop. Like there are people that are sustainably taking water, but we understand they are not from Grootop. They come and collect water. And also people that have small sideways connections from the line, and that is affecting the people that are on lower lying areas to receive water. So these are some of those challenges, and of course also some of the achievements that we have done in Grootop. But we are not done. This we are implementing in different phases to make sure that that we improve the situation. There are other issues like the reservoir is too small, the lack of funding, of course, in terms of this is infrastructure that is very expensive, and of course the maintenance in terms of cost when it comes to maintaining some of this existing infrastructure in the pipeline and the boreholes. So these are just in a nutshell some of the issues that we are dealing with there, and of course also some of the improvements that we so far have brought forth in terms of Grootop. It's only the issue of time. I would have run through the current operational protocol, Grootop water supply, as well as also the future plans that we are looking at. But in the nutshell, that is basically.
Okay. Ms. Amutenya, I do stay with you though, because you spoke about something quite important, which is population growth. And I would like to then have a similar question, but with reference to Windhoek, which is seen and has seen a tremendous growth in its population. How does population growth impact the city of Windhoek's ability to provide enough water for its residents, especially in a setup like a capital city?
Well, that is really a very challenging question, but it's very important. Windhoek is really part of a global village, and water scarcity is a global phenomenon in which some areas, as a result of reduced precipitation, lack of proper infrastructure to supply water, or sustainable strategies for water management, will affect, we will be affected in that way as an urban center. And of course, in a research done by Pennington and Search as well as Van Rensburg in 2009, it was estimated that by 2030, nearly half of the global population is likely to face the problem of water shortage. And of course, Windhoek is not an exception. So we are facing a situation as a country, not only I think as Windhoek, but I think generally the issue of water supply. So the water shortage is really likely to be felt more in the urban center like the city of Windhoek, where the population growth is currently on the rise across the globe. And in our case, Windhoek is a classical example as to why in terms of growing population. And of course, there are limitations in terms of infrastructure development that I earlier mentioned in funding thereof. So at the moment in Windhoek now, we are heavily relied on surface water supplied by NAM water, which is 70% of NAM water that we drink in Windhoek is coming from NAM water, while the remaining 30% is made up of combination of groundwater, that is our reservoirs, and then the reclamation water from our reclamation plants. And of course, there are plans to increase infrastructure capacity and drill more boreholes, but water is a resource that finishes. And we are a dry country, as I mentioned earlier, so the rain patterns also have not been, they've been deteriorating or declining. So I think from a holistic perspective, generally there is a challenge. However, as a result, the existing water sources are unable to really meet the escalating water demand in Windhoek and in most cities around the globe. So it's not a Windhoek thing per se, but just to highlight that it's a global phenomenon that is also affecting us as the residents of Windhoek. Hence the importance of augmenting water supply through other means, more specifically for the cities like ours that is semi-arid and of course affected by climate change in so many ways.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a challenge that we have, but yeah.
Okay. Now, as you said, it's a global phenomenon, so hopefully with our colleagues around the world, one day we'll find a solution to our water problems here. Ms. Nashipili, what is the importance of commemorating the World Wetlands and Water Day, and why are they celebrated in the same day? And maybe in the same vein, you could also just give us this year's theme and why the ministry chose this particular theme.
Okay. Thank you very much for the very valuable question. Yes, why do we commemorate the 2 days? As I said in the beginning, World Wetlands Day is commemorated to highlight threats that are facing the world's wetlands. Over the past 50 years, the world had lost about 35% of wetlands. And this is as a result of human activities, including urban development, agricultural development, etc. And in some part of the world, we also have cases where wetlands were deliberately drained to make ways for human development. Because in some part of the world, not necessarily Namibia, wetlands were considered as wastelands. So it is for these reasons that in 1997, 2nd of February was designated as the world to commemorate and appreciate the importance that we get from wetlands. We receive a number of goods and services from wetlands, and among them is a fertile agricultural soil where we can cultivate our crop fields and graze our animals. Wetlands also assist with controlling floods. Think about of the vast floodplains associated with the rivers that help in spreading the water and slowing the flow of water. Wetlands also assist in absorbing carbon, making the atmosphere a bit cooler. And it is for this reason that we just want to highlight or to educate ourselves on why we should use wetlands sustainable while promoting the livelihood of our people that they derive from wetlands, from activities such as fishing, recreation, and think about it, most of our tourist activities or establishments that are located along most of our famous wetlands, including our mighty Zambezi River. Yes, and allow me at this juncture to come back to why we are commemorating World Water Day. In 1992, the UN General Assembly designated 22nd of March as the day to highlight the importance of water in human lives. And we can all agree that there's no human activity that can happen without water. That's why we always say water is life. We depend on water for our daily lives activities. When we came here, we had lunch. It was prepared with water. Our economics activities, they depend on water. There's no economic activity that can take place without water, irrespective of what sector. You need water for one way or another. And it is because of this reason and the much pressure that is facing the world's freshwater resources. And that is the reason why we are commemorating. We are not talking so much about seawater. I believe there's enough seawater around the globe, but we cannot use that water without desalinating it, which is a costly process. But we are advocating for the sustainable development, production, and utilization of water resources to ensure that the limited water resources that we have around the globe will continue to provide for our daily activities and also safeguard the freshwater resources from the harmful effect of pollution and other human activities. With regard to the themes, globally, World Wetlands Day is commemorated this year under the theme Restoration of Wetlands, calling for actions to ensure that the degraded wetlands are restored and those that are healthy wetlands are maintained in their state to continue providing the services and goods. World Water Day is commemorated under the theme Accelerating Change through Partnership and Collaboration. And this is a call for us to take actions and accelerate access to potable drinking water and improved sanitation. As I've said, a number of our communities around the country and around the globe are without access to safe drinking water and are using sanitation facilities, or they do not have sanitation facility at all to make use. And remember, water has been declared as a basic human right, and sanitation is human dignity. So we need to restore our communities' pride and dignity, and thereby calling for actions from all levels of our communities, both at government and individual level, to make sure that we contribute to improving the lives of our people, especially the poor of the poorest, who most of the time, if not lack access to water and sanitation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would like to make reference to something that you just spoke about right now, which is access to sanitation and safe drinking water. And at this point, I would actually like to have the input of both Mrs. Amutenya and Mrs. Nashipili. Starting with Mrs. Amutenya, what are some of the mitigating factors put in place by your respective institutions, both government and the city of Windhoek, to remedy the situation in which communities are lacking access to sanitation and safe drinking water?
Yes, in our case, one of the measures that we put in place is really starting with the basics, that is the education and the awareness creation, to make sure that we continuously provide the public with relevant information and for them to understand the impact of scarce water on our livelihood as a resident. residents of Windhoek. We previously, when we were hard hit by the drought 3 years ago, we had a continuous campaign that we were running, explaining in details and giving tips on how to use water sparingly, as an example. And it helped a lot. The residents responded very well. So it's an indication that we are in this together. So once we work together, we can prolong the situation so that we do not get to find ourselves in a situation where we don't get water easily. Yeah, we are employing those measures. One of those is also the issues of using water for water-intensive activities, like when people have swimming pools and their pools are usually left open, especially during summer when it's really sunny. So the other way is really to encourage and educate and, of course, continuously provide that information to the public. In terms of sanitation, that is, however, another challenge on its own, especially for some specific areas around the city. Not everyone has access to the system or to the lines for in terms of sanitation, especially the sewerage system and so on. But even those that have, they need to be educated in the proper and sustainable utilization of that system, because it's continuously blocked, especially the sewer system where people will find all sorts of things. And now, even if you have the system in place and it's not being utilized for the purposes it was intended for, it will not help you, it will not improve your life. So this is it's a responsibility on the city to continuously provide this information to the public. And we are really thankful that the Ministry of Agriculture, as they usually do, they are on board this year, also in terms of celebrating this day, preparing and all the logistics, but also in providing a bigger picture in terms of how does this day mean, what does this day mean to an average person on the street, and why it's important for us to do certain things. So it's more of education, awareness creation, and continuous providing information to the public. As of course, as we know, this year the rain is also not as what we expected. We are still hoping for more. So we need to also go with time and see how we are going to also, as individuals, contribute to making sure that our situation remains, progresses, and remains in a better position.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mrs. Nashipili?
Yes, to add on to what Melida had said, yes, a number of programs has been identified and currently been implemented by government through different institutions, including the Department of Water Affairs, in the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, regional and local governments who have projects that are aimed at improving access to potable water and sanitation. Among those programs include the Water Sector Support Program funded through the African Development Bank that is looking at extending bulk water supply and the raw water supply. We have projects in the North Central area, Northeast, and also in Northwest. And we also have some projects that have been established or been implemented through NAMWater along the coastal area. And we also have support from the KfW, a German Development Bank, that is also supporting or had supported the development of a feasibility study to ascertain the feasibility of developing a desalination plant to cater for the water supply, more specifically for the coastal area where the groundwater resources have been declining over the past years. Mm-hmm. And we also have a program, I think Melida earlier on talked about the direct potable water reclamation in Windhoek, which has also been supported through the KFW. So we are hoping that with these interventions that have been implemented and many more that are becoming will improve the access to water supply coverage and sanitation. And mind you, Namibia has been rated as one of the lowest country with the sanitation coverage within the sub-Saharan Africa or within the SADC region.
Okay, okay. We stay with you, Mrs. Nashipili, and you spoke about earlier on the restoration of wetlands. Now, we want to find out, is Namibia likely to consider benchmarking with other countries to better restore and manage wetlands as well as natural water resources? And maybe you could give us some practical examples.
Yes. Thank you very much again for the question. Yes, Namibia has been doing wetlands monitoring, though not necessarily benchmarking, but there are standards that have been developed at the national as well as in the national level that guides the status or the quality of the water resources of wetlands. And through the Department of Water Affairs, we do regular monitoring to determine the ecosystem health of our wetlands. And this is by looking at water quality, both physical and chemical, as well as looking at the biological organisms that are found in these wetlands. Because a number of key aspects that have been looked at is the composition and the diversity of the species that is found in a specific ecosystem or wetlands that determine the health of that ecosystem. And with regards to water resources, we also do monitoring to determine the quality of the water resources in a particular area. And we also give a permit that allows or give you the volume of water that can be abstracted from a particular wetlands or water body. It can be surface, it can be groundwater, and the aim of giving permit is to ensure that our water resources are not depleted. And in addition to water abstraction permit, we also do issue what we call effluent disposal permit, and this aims in controlling the discharged wastewater into the environment to safeguard our water resources and the environment in general, to ensure that they are safe from contamination and threat of pollution.
Okay. We bring our attention back to the commemorative days, and we would like to find out from Mrs. Nashipili again, what is the key message to the general public on this day, and could you maybe elaborate on how important these particular keys relate to this event?
Yes. The message to the public, usually when we are holding or hosting commemoration, we associate this commemoration with creating awareness on safe use of the resources, conservation, and sustainable development. But our key message for this year is accelerate or call for actions to accelerate change, to ensure that our communities and public in general have access to safe drinking water, and also contribute to the attainment of sustainable goals, target 6, which is ensuring access to available water in both quality and quantity, and sanitation for all. And I would also like to bring to the attention of the public that this year the United Nations is hosting a water conference, or what is known as UN Water Conference. It's the first in 50 years, and it is this platform that we want to call for our leaders from global level to join forces and put into action to improve the situation. We cannot continue having billions of citizens without access to improved water and sanitation provision. And with regard to the commemoration at home, which will take place on Friday, the 17th of March in Groothoop in Windhoek, we would like to call on our stakeholders to join forces with our government to ensure that our poorest of the poor have access to water provisions. I know my colleague from the city of Windhoek had highlighted why we are having the current status of water supplies in Groothoop, which is mostly because of the limited water resources. But we need to identify ways on how we can find a lasting solution, probably looking far away from the local resources, which we understand they are no longer able to sustain or to provide sufficient water that is needed by the community. But looking elsewhere, there must be, I personally believe, in every situation there should be a solution. We just need to find ways, and we can only find ways if we join forces. Our president said Harambe, and it's my call for everyone that can make the change to take that actions and Harambe together to improve access to water supplies and sanitation to our community.
But who's the target audience for this event, and how are they likely to benefit from attendance?
Again, thank you very much. The commemoration itself will be in Groothoop, but our target is our leaders at both community, be it traditional, be it regional, be it local and central government, to take actions. And we hope, being in Groothoop, where water situation or crisis have been put in the media, will contribute to already efforts that are made by government. And we are hoping that the committee at Groothoop will join us, and together we can call for improvement and interventions.
Well, our time has come to the end of for this afternoon's session, pardon me, but I would be amiss if I do not actually ask my next question, and it goes both to Mrs. Mutenya and Mrs. Nashipili. I want to find out from you whether there's any other additional information that you'd like to share on this particular topic to enhance, actually.
Thank you very much for the opportunity again. Ms. Nasipili has really highlighted everything that is important on this topical issue. I just want to mention that the call to action, as Ms. Nasipili has explained, is for all of us, including our leaders, but also for us, the consumers and the residents and the population on the ground, to also understand that we have a role to play in terms of making sure that this scarce resource is sustainably managed. If you look at the program for the 2 days, you will see that there's an involvement also of students or learners through educational field excursions, and also visiting various places, listening to presentations from students from math, for instance, and so on. All these efforts are being made to involve all levels of the population, from the young people to the leaders in various roles in our society, so that we all take responsibility. We all see that we are having a responsibility and we have a role to play in this whole issue, or in this whole topic and discussion. So, of course, the ministry is leading in all these activities, but we are also appreciating the efforts that were made by the other sponsors who assisted us to make this a reality. Because it's a lot of logistics, and we would not have done it on our own. Especially that it's a 30-kilometer drive out of the main city center, and all these people and all these arrangements have been made with that purpose in mind. It's for the benefit of our public members, our society, and our future generation. So let's go there, support, and of course implement what we are being told in terms of making sure that it's a sustainable resource going forward.
Mrs. Nashipili?
Yes, more information on the topic can also be found on our Facebook page, which is Save Water Namibia. We're also going to give more information during our educational tour to our learners to service them on Thursday, 16 March 2023, starting at 9 at the Government Auditorium Park before Government Office of Auditorium before moving to the field. And more information will also be provided by our dignitaries and speakers during the formal event at Groot. We are starting at 10 o'clock on Friday, 17 March. And my last call is for each and everyone at both local, in the regional and in the national, is just let us take commitments to improve access to potable water and sanitation. Personally, I commit to improve the management of water resources. What is your commitment?
Very good question. It's a challenge there that Mrs. Nashipili is giving to all of us, and it's a fair one. As she earlier stated, that water is life. There is nothing, whether for human or animal or any other organism, that cannot do without water. And I believe that the recent rains should really not fool us, because even the farmers are starting to get worried because of the outlook that does not look so good for them there. So we should really all do our part, as both Mrs. Nashipili and Ms. Amutenya are, asking us to do. With this said, we have come to the end of our show for the afternoon. I thank both Mrs. Amutenya and Mrs. Nashipili. Thank you very much for availing your time. We highly appreciate you actually putting in the effort to make sure that our people are informed about what's going on and possible mitigating manners that are being put in practice. From myself, Desire Kahia, and my production crew, it's bye-bye. Until next time.